guys, what's going on? Julien here, back with another video. Today I'm gonna go over me playing some Dracotail matches to show you guys how good the deck really is. If you haven't seen the video yesterday where I talked about this deck with Lucas Sacco, the video will be linked down below in the description. So here we have our first match against the real Vamp, just playing on DB rated. And you can see that we lose the Rock Paper Scissors. So we're going second, and we open, Izuna, Nib, Horn, Femena, Mululu, and they open Perulia, Imperm, Lolipo, Ghost Bell, and 1-for-1. So they have, full combo, really nice for them to have, like the Perulia doesn't matter because they have 1-for-1. Meanwhile, we have Nib, which is pretty decent into this deck, especially paired with Femena, and then Izuna, which, would be good here if I wasn't against Yumi, who will just never turn that card on. So my opponent starts normal summon Lolipo. They want to play around Fuelos, so they keep the 1-for-1 in their hand and just will use it as an extender if they need to, which makes sense. When they do this, I let it happen. I let them make Link 1. Activate Link 1 effect, place minion. And then here I'm thinking, well, if they started Lolipo, the only extender they could really have that would make sense would be Cookie. Or if they had a Obedient School and they didn't want to use Obedient School because they had a lot of extenders in hand too, that would also kind of make sense. But so since they can't really have Cupsy because they would start Cupsy, I decide here that I want to interact with them on the resolution before they can activate Minion, because if I remove the Link 1 from the board, they can't activate this card and they can extend. Also, since I saw that it was Yummy, I decided to just fuse away with my Izuna, because obviously I don't want to fuse with my Nib. And so I can just kind of remove their body. I know Izuna's not going to be live. And yeah, so I activate Arthelion, chain Malulu. I use Malulu, obviously just set a card. The negate effect here won't come up too much. But I get to set Ketu, which is probably the best card, especially if my opponent has a body. They don't have a body, it's okay, because Arthelion, will get back my Malulu, which is able to fuse. Worst case scenario with itself and Nib. And Ketu can get me a 5 mana. So here my opponent activates 1-for-1, which is probably the extender I was the least expecting, which makes sense. It's a one of, and they special summon obviously Cupsy, which is the best card to go for here. And one other thing I want to mention really quick is when you use Arthelion, Bell isn't a card that's played by most people, but you usually want to put it at least not on the last chain link, because you do want to play around Bell, because that card can be annoying. And Arthelion is usually a card that if it gets negated, you lose a lot of value from it, because sometimes you're adding back 2, 3, even 4 cards if you're going for some crazy stuff. So yeah, so they activate Cupseed, they add Surprise, and here obviously I don't have anything here. My last disruption is Nib, but I know that if I can, they've already gone through some summons, and if I can Nib them, I can be in a good spot to start the turn, because I will have Malulu, which is just so broken to fuse away into this deck. So I let them play a little bit, summon back, Lolipo. They use Lolipo to put my Femena back in deck, which is fine, I don't really mind. And then they synchro into the other Lolipo, which was confusing to me. I didn't think they would do this. I thought they would go for Cupsy, Yummy way, to be able to search more. And yeah, they summoned back. Here I nibbed, which I don't think I should have, because realistically, they're not actually threatening anything. And I know that they can play through the nib by making Link Spider and activating Surprise. So I should have let this go through and just nibbed at a later point. This was definitely a misplay by me. But obviously, this what these games are for. Even if those DB rated, it's really just a test. So it was good to realize. Yeah, I realized 5 seconds after. I was like, what am I doing? But it was fine. So yeah, so they activate Surprise, summon back Lolipo, make Snatchy. Then I was like, wait a minute, you can't do that. So they take it back and they're like, my bad, Link Spider, all good. Synchro off into Cupsy effect, add Cookie, add Cupsy, and here, because they have 2 hand traps, they just discard Cookie because they don't want to get rid of it. Make a Yummy Snatchy, and obviously they don't really want to go anywhere from here. They don't want to add on a Synchro, because I could just beat over it with Nib. And they pass. So here I'm feeling pretty good right before my draw. I already have Ketu, I have Malulu, into 2 unknowns, but should be fine. I am reading that this is Imperm just because they put it in the same column as my Ketu. And I top deck Lucius, which is really nice here. Will definitely help me break through this board. So to start my turn off, I go activate Ketu, because if I normal monster and it gets Imperm, they pretty much trade 2 for 1 with my normal summon. and my Ketu. So I'd rather just start this, bait out their Imperm on my Nib, which obviously, like, okay, I'll trade 1 for 1, but that's still fine. I can still play through that. So that's fine. I go with Lucius, just because, you know, if it gets stopped, it's still tough. But you know what? Actually, yeah, this was a misplay. I should have gone for Malulu, just because even though Malulu locks me, Malulu can't get ashed. Which if they had Ash, they might not have used it, just because Imperm can just trade with the Ketu already. And if I had like a Rahu, they would want to Ash that. So I shouldn't have gone Lucas here. I should have gone for Malulu, just because it guarantees that I get to fuse off. The only way they could have stopped it in this very moment was literally Valor. Like Ogre wouldn't work, just because I had Lucas plus actually that would have worked. So Ogre and Valor would have worked, but Ash wouldn't work, which in the end, like, Valor would have worked on Lucas. And Ogre wouldn't, but at the same time, Ash has played more than Ogre, right? So you got to play around the cards that are played mostly if you have to choose. So this was also a slight misplay by me. Here he goes to Synchro. I'm not too worried. Literally, like, can't make anything. If he makes Lollipo and Reborns too, like, he has to wait for my next action to, you know, start popping off, and I can just negate whatever Snatchy he makes when I choose off Malulu. So he makes Cookie, which literally does nothing, because he's just going to flip my guys, which, like, I can flip the Nib back, and then I can just fuse with Lucas while he's face down, you know, like, Book of Moon is not good into fusion decks. Here, I mean, obviously I can break his board pretty easily just by fusing Malulu and Lucas, but I decide that, you know, he has one unknown, and I can just beat over this Cookie. So I decide there's no reason to risk anything. I'll just go beat over it with Nib, you know, go main phase 2, 900 attack more, so it's all good. I flip this over, which with Lapse of Judgment, my bad. I know I can't do that, but it doesn't matter, because in the end I'm just going to fuse with it. So I fuse these two off, make Arthelion. Again, see here the Arthelion chain blocking with Bell. He was literally waiting for me. If you saw, he admitted defeat right after I chain blocked the Arthelion, just because he could have belled it and at least stopped some of my resources from coming back. But then I just get so far ahead that he scoops. So now on to game 2, going second again, obviously, which Dracotail into Yummy going second is so broken. So I flew this. He ashes. Now I have Meows, which is decent, but definitely not as good as Fua, but can still apply pressure. See, his hand is really strong, you know, Solemn Warning, Purge, Hard Open Field Spell, which is not as good, but still really strong of a hand. So he places them in from deck. So you can see this guy's actually playing 2 minions, which is something that people have been doing. You cut the Akroki, and you just play 2 minions, because this deck, once you lose the minion, just loses to literally everything. So this is definitely a interesting deck building decision. I don't think it's bad. I think taking out the Akroki obviously lowers your ceiling, but it is what it is. If it puts your floor higher, then that's good, right? I chain to the minion. The Meow is obviously just to get draw 1. I draw Phantasme, which is like kind of tough. I've been trying both these cards. I realized that, like, having them together is not the best, obviously, because they conflict. He had Surprise. Obviously, he's gonna keep playing here. He's not under Fua, right? Only Meow, so he's gonna keep playing. His bodies from Obedience School are going to die anyway, so he might as well replace them with other bodies. He makes Cupsy. Cupsy gets him another Cupsy, as well as a Cookie that he dumps. Then he makes a Link 1, and here I have to choose between, like, Phantasme and Fenrir. And I'm like, well, my hand into his unknowns, like, I know people are citing in, like, Judgments, you know, Warnings. Purge is really good against Ketu. Like, I think I just need to draw more cards. So, and I was lagging a little bit here, so he, like, said all 3 of his cards, and I was like, wait, sorry, I have Phantasme. So I go Phantasme. He thinks about it. He can't really do anything. I guess he could have synchroed off, but that's not that good. And then I draw Case Lantern. I put back the Fenrir, just because, like, it's going to be pretty hard to get the Fenrir on the field. He sets 3, passes to my turn, and I'm like, here I'm thinking about how I want to do it. I want these cards to be negated last, right? Because if they both get negated, and I know that this deck plays Purge, like, Ketu can be negated, and then whatever, like, Solemn card he has could stop Rahu. So I want to start with my K9 engine and hope that he just uses his traps on it. It's, like, not gonna work if my opponent plays correctly, but I know that if I lead with these 2, it's also not gonna work, so I might as well, like, fish for a misplay, which sometimes is just all you can do. So I summon the 2. He summons back 2 guys, you know, pops my Jokel, sure. On res, he goes to book both my guys, I'm pretty sure, which, you know, sure, I can't do anything about that. So then I'm like, okay, well, yeah, we got through that. Now let's try to activate case, see if he flinches. He doesn't. I add a Draco, which literally does not do anything. Then I go Rahu, and this gets warning, and I'm like, okay, Ketu one time. And Ketu gets stopped. Not much I could do there. Like, he got to establish his board. My hand, like, looked really good at first, but then as soon as Fua got ashed, the Meows wasn't, like, going to do much. The Meows would have been really strong to hold for my turn, but at that point, it was too late. Also, funny enough, if I, like, Meows him on my turn, he could have purged it by setting it. So, we are on to game 3. Where now I'm going first, so I get to show him a little bit what I can do. My hand looks insane. So opening Nib in this deck is really good because your disruptions are hard to just like break. Like your board's hard to break just because your board isn't much. It's just a lot of layered interruptions, like one at a time, and then Nib just kind of comes in and sweeps everything up. So I go main phase. I normal summon Lucas. I go Lucas effect here, and because I already have 5 mana in hand, I just add Arugula. Because in the end, Arugula can get me back my 5 mana, and I don't have to go through Arthurion to add it back. And if I do want to add it back with Arthurion, I can use Urgula to add something else. So then here I go for 5 mana effect, and he chains Fua, obviously, which is fine, because in the end, I'll just give him his 1 draw, and I'll still set up like a decent half board with Nib behind it. So I summon Arthurion, he gets to draw into engage. I go Arthurion 2, I guess, Malulu and Urgula, just set my traps here. He imperms Arthurion, which I'm fine with, because again, I set up the Urgula, right? So the fact that Arthurion gets stopped means that I still get my Femina. I don't really care, and I have Ketu. So even though my Arthurion gets stopped, and again, see, I played around Ghost Spell, very nice. Even though because he has imperm, he still would have impermed it, but still played around it. I set both my traps, which together plus Nib is gonna be insane. Get my Femina back, and then activate Ketu, get Pan. So the way I'm thinking about this is that if I can pop one of his monsters and then nib him, or do the opposite, nib him and then pop like the token or something, like it's just impossible for him to beat me. So it's his turn. You see he has like a bunch of extenders, which if I stop him early, I should be able to win. But because I don't know what he has, obviously, I'm actually gonna be more on the cautious side. I do let him make Kagari, add back token, or add back Hornet Drones, obviously, make token, and then here I'm thinking, and I just bounce the Kagari back. I just want to force him to normal summon, or turn this into Spider, because if he turns this into Spider and I nib him later, then the token's dead. That was my logic there. I also want to see if he has Ash or Bell for this, and go from there. So he doesn't. I get to add it back, draw a card, draw Fenrir, which looks bad, but is not the worst, because now I can 5 mana with Fenrir. I don't have to take the bodies off my board. Obviously, because I have Nib, it's fine to take the bodies off my board, but I can also just throw Fenrir in the equation and then just get to add back other cards like a Malulu for next turn, add back my Pan for next turn, add back my 5 mana. It's completely fine. Any monster draw here was fine. So you normal summons Cubsy, which I'm like, okay, that's a pretty good one. And here I'm like, okay, yeah, let's just let this guy play. Like, literally, I don't think he can do anything. I obviously think about it for a while. He gets his minion. He makes his Synchro 2. He doesn't want to commit his bodies to the board, which kind of makes sense, I guess. And then, yeah, I'm just like, let's let him play. At the end of the day, I still have my Spell Negate. Like, I'm feeling pretty confident. And I'm starting to learn more and more cards about in his hand, right? I know Surprise, and I know 2 names. So now there's only 2 unknowns. And I can just nib him when the time is right. And he shouldn't have any extenders left at that point. So, summons Lollipo, puts back the Malulu. I'm like, whatever. He makes Link 1, Snatchy, and then minion some back Lollipo, and I'm like, sure, still no threat to me here. Summon the Cookie, and then I know Surprise still, and now Cookie was an unknown, so there's only 1 unknown in the back, and he could still only special summon Cupsy. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just nib him and then get rid of his bodies. So we get rid of, so much here, right? Such good value for me. Give him the token, and then he can turn this token into Spider. But then when he does, I actually let him do it, because I'm like, well, he has Surprise, so he could extend, right? He could summon back Link 1, special summon Cupsy, and have some plays from there. And I don't want to have to use my Flame on Surprise. I want him to Surprise summon something that doesn't work by itself, and then Flame the last spell, if it is a spell. Like, for example, Like some people will hold the beating school to the very last moment, eat through all your disruptions, be like, bang, I have like infinite bodies that will just FTK you. So I literally was holding this as long as possible, knowing that what I had currently would trade with every card on his board, and then I could just beat the last card with Flame because only a spell could get him out of this. So I fused with everything, fused with Arthurion. I go Arthurion, bouncing only the spider and my Lucius, and then Pan and Arthurion is summoned back. Add back the Lucius for next turn as follow up. Set Rahu as follow up. Pop the Cupsy again. If he goes surprise summon, even if he summons back Synchro, he can't activate Obedience School, right? So whatever the last card is, like literally doesn't matter. Yeah, like this could have been Obedience School instead of Bell, and I would still win just because I held on to this for so long. That was the first replay. Going on to second replay. Obviously I'm playing Dracotail again. This time I win the die roll. And we're against Vanquish Soul K9. So I go first. I open 5 mana, Nib, Lucius, Beast, and Perulia. My opponent opens Caesar, Ash, Madlove, Jokul, and Perulia. So Perulia against my deck, completely useless. If I see you drop it inside my face, I'm just going to give you 0 draws off of it. So I go for a kind of risky play, but pretty much I go 5 mana. It's not even that risky. I decide that obviously I'm going to fuse 2 cards, and I didn't have to fuse the Perulia, but I want to trigger all my cards, and I want to transform this Perulia. I talked about this in the video yesterday, just going over the general idea of this deck and why it's okay for you to play 6 Moltres, because I can just transform this Moltres back into my Femena, right? So because I use 3 monsters from the hand, you can see my grave I have 4 monsters. I have 1 completely useless one, which is Perulia. I have 3 good ones. So I just transform my Perulia into the other cards. So I go, Arthurion 1, Beast 2, Lucas 3, I add back all 3s, so I set. I did this kind of out of order, but I should have drawn first because it was, the second to last thing on the chain link. Draw into Izuna, which, pretty goaded because he Perulia'd me, which at this point can be worth to just Izuna him. It's 1 draw. He didn't draw, but I remind him he needs to draw. It's 1 draw in exchange for, a Ripper or a Nash Knight, which he ashes, but still got the ash of his hand. Now my Rahu is going to resolve, which, again, if my Rahu didn't resolve, not the end of the world. I can just, 5 mana on his turn and have disruptions that way. So I fuse, make Golamo, use 5 mana and Urgula to set both the traps. And after setting both the traps, I go Urgula, put itself back to the bottom, add back 5 mana, and now we're cooking. So now it's his turn. I have everything set up. I have what I was talking about last game. I have Nib in my hand, plus I have all my, all my setup. Golamo, I can even pop a card when I activate a card. I can 5 mana fuse. It's really good. And if I draw off of a dark off of one of these cards, I can just make Winda on this guy, and then he just loses. And I know that Winda and Nib don't work together because you can't Nib under Winda. But my opponent won't be able to play under Winda, right? So he had to out the Winda, and then I could Nib him. So he starts with Madlove to add. I decide here that I'm just going to bounce it because pretty much if he has something like Caesar or Burger, then it just forces them out onto the field. And I can always chain 5 mana and then chain Golamo and pop it and then just trade for 2 of his cards. It takes a lot of resources from me, but it gets me to know his attributes and also just get him out of his hand, like preventing the Madlove completely. So I bounce it, draw a card, draw Ketu, which like in the moment, not great for disrupting my opponent, but I know that I can live with how strong my hand is, so this is actually a really good draw, just great follow-up. He activates Start, and when he activates Holy Sue here, I go to negate the Start, because I don't want him to be able to protect his Sue. What I could have done also was like, he summons Sue, right? I could go chain 5 mana, chain Golamo, target Sue to pop it, chain Flame to negate, but that seemed like committing a lot at once. And again, I want to draw cards and see what I can draw into. The other thing that's really important to note is that when you activate your first trap, yeah, sure, draw a card, put back whatever you think is most important. When you activate the second trap, you want to put the other trap back, because that's the only way to ever keep the traps looping if you ever get into a grand game. I draw into a second Ketu, which actually is good for like showing you guys the replay here that like I don't need broken draws with how I set up my board already and how my hand was good already. I didn't need to draw anything. Like I didn't need to actually win down my opponent. I could do with what I had. So he summons Holy Sue. Then he goes for Jokul, which makes sense. I mean, the best he could do is steal here, which I guess he could steal in Zuna, which isn't bad. But he probably can tell that like with 5 mana, being able to just bounce everything. Actually, the funny thing is if he took my Izuna, yeah, I would probably go Aetherion. I would just bounce the Izuna, get the Izuna back in my hand, and then just interrupt him like that, which would have been a funny way to disrupt him. Which obviously I can still do, but then he would have had to waste one of his pushes on my card that I could have bounced already anyways. So he summons all these guys, and I'm like, well, you know what? All right, let's put them back in the hand. So he dumps Lupus. I go Chainlink 1 Beast to draw, Chainlink 2 Arthelion to bounce, Chainlink 3 Lucius to chain block all my things again from Bell, like that card. Some people play, you don't want to auto lose to it. He summons Lupus, which is completely fine. I bounce these guys. The reason, so I bounced Holy Sue. I just wanted to get the Vanquish Soul names so that if he has any taggers, I can again find out. I just want to get the 5s off the board as well. I don't want Draco to be able to trigger. I don't want to put Izuna back in his hand for future turns. So I bounced those guys, set Rahu, and he chain blocked with Lupus, me from being able to use Golamo, which actually reminded me of, I thought in the moment, I kind of forgot right now, but a misplay that I made is that I should have activated my 5 mana on the previous chain link before Lupus was in the graveyard. That way I could have chained Golamo, because here I realized like he has an automatic thing that he can chain and chain block me. So after doing all this, I nibbed just because pretty much my whole board will be in the grave, but the second that 2 monsters get set to the graveyard, they all come back except for Izuna, which is great. So I do that, summon, nib, put the token in defense, banish these guys, and here, yeah, he just has no more pushes. I also know 3 out of the 4 cards in his hand, and he's already normal summoned, so I don't know what the last card could be. It'd have to be specifically Lantern, which in retrospect, it looks like I didn't play around that very well. I definitely had some better plays. Like I could have, if I was going to nib him anyways, I should have bounced the Izuna to my hand rather than bouncing his monsters. Like again, I was just going to nib him. Like who cares, right? I could have bounced Izuna to my hand. I could have put Beast back in my hand for the following turn. That's definitely something I could have done better. So we draw Dracotail. I activate Ketu. And all he has is like Holy Sue Steel right now, which is not enough into this deck. I fuse with Pan, that way I can just clear the token and as few summons as possible. He still has 1 unknown. And I just summon my whole board back. And he scoops, yeah. I was going to be like 3 summons, go for attack directly. If he Holy Sued me, I was just going to fuse 1 more time and kill him. So that was fine. Now we go into the next game. And here my opponent goes first. You know, he's normal summons Raisin, adds Holy Sue. On Res Fua, he like sometimes on DB rated people will go kind of fast and you have to be like, wait, sorry. Always, even if they like for example, when you actually start, in theory, I should just let him do all that, right? Like if you're like in a tournament and your opponent does that, you're like, oh sure, you know, like let them misplay, let them go like fast play you, if it's gonna cause them to make a mistake. But then, like when you're testing, you want to get the best out of every scenario. Like you don't want to get the best in terms of you want to win necessarily. You want to learn in the best way. So here I'm like, I will fool on res, even though it might change his ad. I want him to add like what makes the most sense in the actual game state, like as if I was playing, you know, the best player ever. So he adds Borger, which makes sense. He's getting attributes to his hand. He can also bounce the Raisin, get the fire back in his hand. He makes Rock, which I don't know why he did this, to be honest. He should have made Rock with Raisin and just added the Raisin back. This plays into Bishop is like kind of crazy. So I draw into Jokul, which is, you know, a good push for the next turn. He adds back Border, summons Holy Sue. And sometimes you can kind of tell when your opponent's like kind of fold under the pressure of Fuelos, which some people do. So he summons Zuna, dumps Lupus, and then here instead of summoning back Lupus and making Ripper, he decides to go for Holy Sue, which I don't think is correct. This was actually crazy for my opponent because it let me draw into 5 mana, and I was able to hard punish him. So he summons Borger, Borger draws a card. I'm like, sure. He sets 1, and then end of main phase, again, my opponent went kind of fast. End of main phase, I go 5 mana, fuse, Beast, and Lucius. And I summon the Arthelion. So here again, I get 2 add backs, right? And I want the 5 mana back in my hand for sure. And I also want to prevent him from being able to activate start. So I want to put one of the Vanquish Soul monsters back in his hand. And which is funny enough, I drew Nib, which was really good off the Beast. I put back the Border. He thought I was trying to pop it, but I was trying to bounce it. And you know, here, now I'm like, well, I'm preventing him from getting the trap. So this is funny again. This is a weird nib draw, right? I'm preventing him from getting the trap. And the next thing he can do is make Ripper. And at that point, like my Nib becomes like so much like becomes unusable because I already used 5 mana, so I'd have to draw specifically into like Azuna to pair with a Nib, which is like too much to ask for in a scenario like this. So, I nib him. I'm like, well, okay, I did all that, but I got to draw the nib. I get to out his whole board. The best he can do is like summon back Lupus, and obviously he has Staker Soul, which I wouldn't know, but like I can't count it out because I fooled him, so he obviously wouldn't use it. Summons Jalong with Ash and Raisin gets him to add a he wants to add the trap directly because he still wants to have access to it, which kind of makes sense, but again, it doesn't. I think he might have forgotten that Jalong gets bounced, or he was preying on the shared right to get him his last attribute. But what he could have done here, my opponent could have reborn Lupus because he still hadn't done that, and then giving me one more draw just to make the Ripper. But then Ripper can add another Izuna, so then you can actually end your turn with Fire, Dark, and Earth with the Trap live, with Shared Right live, with Ripper just being a negate, the Quick Play spell live because I activated monster effects in the hand. That's definitely something my opponent could have done better here, and it's always good to notice those things because it means that like you as a player are getting better if you can like looking at replay like, oh, this guy should have done this, I should have done this. Really good signs. So the Jalong gets bounced back to the hand, and now it's my turn and look at my hand. I would say I'm in a pretty good spot. I top deck Azuna too, so like this deck activates effects from the hand, and we should just be able to win. So I activate Ketu. He changed shared right, so now I'm like rethinking my plan. I'm like, well, now he activates this. I need to win the game without adding cards, which should be okay, just because I have 5 mana. And I have all these canine monsters. Like, I actually don't need to search for them. I have all of them already, which is really funny. So all I need to do is just put my guys on the field and win. And here, this was actually like a pretty bad misclick. I really thought I sent Urgula just because I obviously want to deal with the trap. And I noticed it a little later. I'm like going to activate Urgula. I'm like, wait, that's the wrong card. So I sent Urgula, and my opponent's pretty cool. Just lets it happen. Honestly, like some people would not let that happen. But if you want to get testing again, that's like good to let these things happen. So I go Urgula, Chain, Golamo. So I pop his trap and his token, just pretty much putting game on board in like 2 summons, right? Summon Maltherion back, set my thing, get it, kill his trap, and I just go battle phase, and there's literally nothing my opponent can do, so he scoops. So that's another game of just this deck completely cooking. Nib in this deck is so broken because all your like hand traps, right, are high impact. You play 3 Perulias, 3 Fuas. The goal of those is to draw you into Azuna, 5 mana, and like the cards that go with 5 mana. And then Nib pairs so well with those cards because the main thing in this format that will like stop Nib is Ripper, right? Or like if people are playing Ryzio like Cross, 5 mana can just out those cards for free, right? Or just like force the negate. Same with Azuna. So it's really, they pair really well. It's kind of like how in Snake Eye format you want like to draw Imperm Nib. Here you can draw 5 mana Nib, 5 mana Izuna Nib. But the great thing about this is that 5 mana, like obviously it takes more cards than Imperm, but your whole deck is built around it. So like if you draw 5 mana, you should already have the cards that go with it. And at that point, like it's doing so much more than a single Imperm could ever do. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. Please let me know in the comments if you like this kind of content. If you want to see more of this with any other deck, also let me know. Drop a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye bye.